Let me know when you want me to start, Katie.
Whenever you're ready, Vyasa.
Cool. All right. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Vyasa McPherson, and I'm one of the EmAGN co-chairs based in the ACT. Thank you so much for joining us today for this sustainability snack. Today, we're focusing on the Australian Zero Carbon Housing Challenge. We recognise the unceded sovereign lands and rights of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the first peoples of these lands and waters of the country we know today as Australia. This recognition generates acknowledgement and respect for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander countries, cultures, and communities, and their ways of being, knowing, and doing. The Australian Zero Carbon Housing Challenge is a flagship decarbonisation initiative led by the award-winning Canberra Low Cabron Housing Challenge team in collaboration with the Australian Institute of Architects. It supports architects to design low to net zero carbon residential buildings with measurable outcomes, informing national advocacy to accelerate built environment climate action. I'm pleased to present our speakers today. We have Dr. Melinda Dodson, we have Dr. Kevin Miller and Rob Henry, all here based in the ACT as well with me. They are experts in sustainability and are volunteering their time today to educate us on carbon modelling. Their speakers will run through the topic and then there will be time at the end of the session for questions. So I'll hand straight over to Melinda to get the presentation started.
Thanks, Vyasa, and hi everyone. It's great to be here today. I'm loving that space that you're in there as well, Vyasa. Very cool, roof space and trusses. I'm here today because we want to talk to you about the challenge and we want to talk to you about the opportunity for you. So if Rob, Kevin and I do our job properly, and you can test us, it means that we will have talked to you a bit about the pragmatics of the challenge, like what you can enter and what it means. We'll talk to you a bit about why carbon reductions matter and how you can go about measuring them for your residential projects. And we want to talk about local participation, but how then as a collective we can gain the carbon reduction momentum that we really need in Australia. And so some pragmatic things. What is the challenge? This is our third round. We've been running it as volunteers for quite a number of years. I think it's about 5+ years. We've scaled it nationally with the Institute of Architects for this round. Just been a big volunteer effort, but one where we've had sponsors and we've had Circlos who run the life cycle assessment app, and others come on board and continue to support us to be able to bring this, I guess, this education program, but also software to you. So you can model and essentially analyse the carbon impacts of any of your projects up to 3 stories anywhere in Australia. So essentially it's the low density, single res, missing middle, anything other than apartments. Apartments tend to fall more into that commercial residential category, and you're really looking at a more complex form of life cycle assessment for those bigger residential projects of a commercial ilk. The targets, so 50% improvement on business as usual carbon reductions, but our real ambition in the challenge is to achieve net zero, and we'll tell you a bit today about how you can do that. So why does it matter? Why would we want to be reducing our residential carbon? Well, this is research that shows how across Australia we're overshooting our committed residential carbon reduction targets by about 9-fold. So if you can see my cursor there, we were hoping to be shooting for the middle here, according to researchers. We'd like to be down here. This is what we would be targeting if we were trying to meet Australia's overall carbon reduction targets, and instead we're actually up about here. So there's still a big residential carbon reduction opportunity, but one that we're not solving well enough yet residentially across Australia. But the good news is that architects are already helping to reduce carbon. And I'm sure you'll recognise the sort of opportunities that we tend to pursue in our design. So this is business as usual at the bottom, often larger, around 6 stars, a little bit of solar. This is the life cycle. So if you're thinking about the overall life of the house, for the carbon challenge, we measure the house from, when it's built through to when it might be demolished as a typical 55-year cycle. There's a bit to that, but maybe just hold that thought and put a pin in that. We can discuss it in the questions later. Typical Australian house, around 2.6 occupants. The 55 years, by the way, is around about how long they last before they get demolished. So we often, as the architectural community, achieve better outcomes than business as usual. And that is where we had a suspicion with the first challenge round that architects were already making a contribution, but not necessarily measuring their carbon reductions. And so here's a snapshot of what we've achieved so far as a community. These are some samples of projects that have exhibited in previous challenges and have done their own carbon modelling of their residential projects. It ranged from passive house projects to multi-unit sites, townhouses up to 3 stories and the like, granny flats, alterations and additions, separate dwellings. And so far, collectively, this is across the 3 rounds of the challenge, architects have saved carbon equal to planting nearly 200,000 trees. But our goal for this challenge this year is to try and hit 1 million trees worth of carbon saved. So this is where we want you to get involved, and it's our job today to give you a feel for the challenge and why you might want to get involved. So this project, this is one that I did a few years ago, back in 2020, in fact. My background is about 2/3 of the work I do is commercial and university work, and the other third is residential work. So this is one of the residential projects. My client came to me in 2020 and asked if they should keep the house or knock it down. And I decided with that project that I wanted to not only analyse the site and the house for its potential, but understand its carbon impacts as well and make that part of the evidence that I brought to them. And so we did carbon models for keep and also knock down rebuild. In the end, decided that we would keep the existing house, which is the L shape here, add a wing to the house, which allows them to age in place, to have a carer living in this wing of the house if they need to, have the grandkids and the family visit. It's 8 stars, it's very compact, it's got the sort of characteristics that you would be used to, so not just reducing operating energy, but dramatically reducing the carbon associated with the materials. Partly by keeping a lot of the existing house, that gave us an immediate win, and then keeping a cap on how much space we added as a function of the number of occupants. So in other words, house size, but also the number of occupants using the house has really helped to keep the overall carbon footprint down. So this is a net zero example, and for those of you that know NatHERS, it's also an 8-star, I think it was like 8.1 star energy efficiency. So it means it's got better air tightness, it faces north, it's got the good solar passive, etc. Design moves just for fun, and I'll be very quick. Wanted to keep the ceilings at 2.4 so that the spaces could be compact and compartmentalised for heating and cooling. So there's just these couple of snorkels, one running through here and one running through here, which adds a bit more volume to the spaces and interest and captures that northern light, but without having large volumes overall. So what did that mean for the carbon challenge? Well, I analysed the carbon impacts. It's about 2 pages worth of carbon data, essentially data about your projects that you're adding into the app. And I used it early in the process, which meant that I could make design decisions early to adjust the overall design until I got to net zero. It is Rapid LCA. It is brought to us by Circlos, who have been really generous volunteers for about 5 years now. It uses, for those of you that know eTool, it uses the eTool engine, but it's a very curated menu. And so what we're going to do now is Rob will take you through a short video that just gives you an actual demo of how to use the app. Thanks, Vyasa and Rob.
And yeah, thanks, Mel. So I've cheated here and created a video for you to listen to. So we'll get that put up now and listen away. It's about how we go about actually modeling through using the very simple app that we've got. So. Unfortunately, the sound's not on. Hang on a minute. Sorry about this. We had it up and running before and now it's not working. I might see if I can get it.
I might jump in and see if I can share it.
Thanks for that.
While Rob's doing that, I'm not going to mention which states haven't participated yet, but we've got to. So I wouldn't mind if you put in the chat which state or territory you're from, because we're really keen to get good representation across the country and make sure in the national exhibition that we have posters and case studies that represent all of the states and territories. Thank you. I've started seeing the where you've come from, where you're based.
It seems like we're going to continue to have technical issues with this, which is okay. What we can do is this video is able to be shared with you at a later point in time. I'll just quickly mention what's in the video. It's basically a step-by-step guide that goes through the Rapid LCA app. That particular app can be either found from our website, lowcarbonhousing.com.au, or through rapidlca.app. And it goes through step by step all the various stages to do the modelling process, and basically is really useful for you to have alongside when you're actually doing your own project. There's a series of different segments that you go through, different components in the app that talks about like the project attributes, but then things like water usage, electricity usage, and the like. So, and some little helpful hints in how you actually calculate, square meterage of different components. We will, I think, then just continue on and jump into my little project that I've been working on.
I'll email out the video to everyone.
Thank you. And we'll also have it up on our own website as well for people to have a look at. So anyway, sorry about that. Mel, if you wouldn't mind sharing the next slide.
Yeah, I might just need permission to share my screen again because it's not coming up as being shared, even though it's up on my screen.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to try again, Mel? Oh, thanks. We can see your screen, Mel. We can't hear you, but we can see it.
Perfect, thanks. Rob, can you hear that okay?
No.
See it okay?
There we go. Yep, so just to go to, that's great. So this little project that I've been working on is a collaboration with the Suburban Land Agency in the ACT area. It was originally 3 small blocks of land designed for terrace housing, and we've turned it into a small, what was called a micro housing precinct. It's 8 individual dwellings on this small parcel with community title space in the middle. So small blocks of land around 90 square meters in size, and really compact houses to it. So this particular little floor plan that we're looking at is a 2-bedroom model, and that's got 2 bedrooms, 1.5 bathrooms, and has a gross floor area of around 106 square meters. It's utilizing a carport with a terrace above that. And basically these small blocks then get to utilize the community title in between. So in doing the modelling of this, already a huge saving from the average house of 275 square meters. So and ours being around 100 square meters. It's an 8-star rated house. And so if we could just go to the next page, Mel. Just some pictures of it. Basically, the outcome of this is, when we've done the modelling of it, is that it's a 110% reduction on the average house. So the whole life cycle analysis, 110%. So we're net zero, which is fantastic. And then if we just look at it at upfront carbon, it's a 42% reduction. So the big differences between the two there. So the upfront carbon obviously being when you're building it, and then the whole life cycle being how this house tracks over time. They're very small roofs, so it's got a modest solar panel system on it, but it's very efficient in its use of space and materials, and that's sort of what achieves the outcome. And we'll jump on to Kevin now to talk a little bit more about the how to get involved in the challenge.
Hi there. They've probably put me here because if I can use the app, anyone can. I've been around for a long time. Originally, we did the first ever 6-star Green Star building in Canberra. So we're probably more commercially based. But I'm a newer part to the carbon challenge, and I've come on board to sort of help with the national edition, and also to ask lots of dumb questions to get it across the line. We put our head on the chopping block and thought we'd model a house that we won an architecture award for a couple of years ago, which is always a bit scary because you hope it's going to do okay, but you're never sure until you've modelled it. And this is a refurbishment of what's called a monocrete house in Canberra, basically concrete walls with no insulation and no barriers. And we essentially wrapped it and refurbished it. And we were quite happy to get better than net zero at 119%. So I would encourage you to model. The easiest way to do it is just to jump in. If you go on the website, have a look through what's already there, but there's a little button down the bottom corner that says model now. There's lots of guides to help. The Get Started guide is the one that I helped produce through all the dumb questions. And I thought I'd make it easy by making it easy for myself. But there's a few videos in there as well that will help. Just an intro into life cycle assessment, a modelling guide, and also, which helped me, some tips on doing alts and ads. And then there's a frequently asked questions sort of section as well, which you can go through all the old questions that we gathered over the years. And then just model. When you go into the app itself, there are sections in the app where you can ask CERCLOS questions, but there is a spot where you can also ask direct questions of us under the registrar. And there is a section when you get to a certain point where you have to pay for the app as well, which is at a very low nominal cost, below $100. And I guess for me, coming from a Green Star background, this is a very simple, low-cost way of getting an idea of how your building is performing in comparison to going through a full sort of Green Star analysis. Okay. I think I'll leave it open for people to ask questions after this. Go back to Vyasa.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Can I open the floor to any questions anybody has? Might start us off with a question while people are thinking. Mel, could you talk a bit more about the outcomes of the Canberra Challenge and what were some highlights?
Sure. So we had a suspicion that, I think Kevin sort of summarised it in a nutshell, like you feel a bit trepidatious, a bit nervous to find out initially what the carbon impacts of your residential projects might be if you're doing it for the first time. You've got a hunch that you might be reducing carbon, but you really need to get in there and get amongst the use of the app to understand that. So we had this hunch, and we hoped that architects participating would be saving carbon. We found that on average, in the rounds so far, they were saving about 450 tonnes of carbon per project. That's by smaller than the average house, using less materials, so dematerialising, recycling and reusing materials potentially. Energy efficiency, you all know, but the one that may be less obvious when you're thinking about the total embodied as well as energy efficiency proposition is that I call it the bedroom density. So how many occupants are you potentially catering for? How flexible is the house? And I've got here a bit of a sneak preview of the exhibition. It'll be happening later in the year, but this is a little sneak preview just for you guys only. And this is some of the data, really small on the page here, but some of the data related to previous projects. And the long bars here mean the most carbon reduction achieved. So some of these are up in a sort of net zero, 100% and more. Down the bottom is only a low carbon reduction. And interestingly enough, with bedroom density, the larger houses where you might have, say, 100 square metres per person, they're the ones that didn't perform as well. So you've really got to get that bedroom density up and get the house size per occupant down. So those sorts of things that we learnt through the challenge were all really, exciting for us. And I guess that collective, as well as, the power is in getting, a sense of how each state and territory is performing as well as how we all perform individually. Thanks, Vyasa.
Thank you so much. Were there any other questions that anybody wanted to drop into the chat? while we wait for potentially some other questions. Rob, I understand you recently modelled a project. How simple was the process?
Yeah, so I guess I've done a few over the couple of challenges, and you do get a little bit more familiar with it. But it is actually a really simple process. You just need, some very base information on your project when you go into it. So this is really designed to be used in the design phase. So you can do it, post construction, like Kevin has done. But we're starting to use it as a tool in the design phase, early design phase as well. Right through, in the concept design phase, you can start thinking about this and start encouraging your clients to think about, what types of finishes and, hot water systems and things like that they should be using in it. But it's an app. You can actually use it on your phone. It's that simple. You go through and as long as you know the basic information, the types of materials that you're using, the square meterage, and energy rating is important. You plug all of that stuff in, and what it does is that when you put in your base information, it basically creates a series of averages for all of the components within a house, and then you can from there go and tweak to suit your actual house. So it'll say, the average, wall material is X square meters, and then you can start to refine that to be, 30% of that is brickwork, and 70% of that is something else. So really simple. It's like, for me, it can take, at a base stage, a concept design phase, it can take less than an hour to do. And then if you want to get real nerdy, give yourself a couple of hours.
Wow, yeah, that does sound efficient. We've just got a question from Naomi in the chat asking, would the app work for something that's not necessarily a residential project, something like a public toilet or another small scale non-resi project?
Not necessarily for this. So the way that this challenge is set up is it takes the average house that is being built in Australia, and it uses that to create the data set behind the scenes of what determines whether you're getting an improvement or not on your design. So it's focused on having bedrooms and bathrooms and things like that. And so therefore it has to be used for residential projects. There are other apps out there that can be used to do all the different types of projects.
Yeah, I'd just like to add to that like we do a lot of commercial projects, and if you do a design example and have a look at the materials, it can be useful in that regard to inform other buildings and your material choices. Like sometimes you think maybe a natural material is a good option, but when you look at the life cycle, it could mean that that natural material gets changed over about 5 times in the 50-year period. So it does help to inform choices.
A really good example of that is let's just take the front door of a house, an aluminium framed front door, aluminium and glazed front door, versus a timber framed and timber door glazed. The aluminium one performs better over the longevity of the life cycle to a timber one. So we think timber sustainable, that's what we should use. There's not a huge difference between the two, but aluminium in that particular instance performs better.
And it's worth mentioning EPDs as well. We're still getting to know EPDs and their value to our carbon analysis, as in it's not entirely mainstream yet. But if you can get hold of a project that material for your project that has an EPD, it means that there's actually, you know, credible carbon data on the impacts of the material that you're using. And some of that's already fed through to the app. So, you know, essentially, if there is a material with an EPD, then that carbon data is already part of the overall menu of carbon impacts. And so we want to get to that point where there are more EPDs for more materials, because we've done a lot of really great stuff with energy efficiency in our residential and other projects over the last 2 decades, but dematerialisation and the reduction of carbon, embodied carbon, is the key thing this decade and beyond, which is why we're focusing so much on it with the challenge.
Thank you. We've got a question from Meg. Will the data input into this program be used to inform future policy?
100%. And Mel can probably answer this as well, but the reason why we're aligned with the Institute of Architects, the decarbonisation plan, is that all of the information that we're gathering here from people entering and showing what architects are doing is leading to a bigger picture of policy reform nationally. So the Institute of Architects obviously works with both local and federal governments, and there is an agenda here to push for carbon modelling to become, I guess, a mandatory requirement in the future.
Yeah. I mean, look at the power of something like this. If you change house size, so if you design for, you know, standard sort of occupancy, but you reduce the house that you've designed by 100 square metres, don't change anything else, then you're going to reduce carbon equal to planting about 600 trees. The Commonwealth Government and governments around the country in partnership are trying to see 1 million homes built by 2030 as part of this course correcting of a lack of housing. So just that one partnership across the states and territories, if we were to reduce carbon for all of those 1 million houses, you know, imagine the impact it would make. So we see architects as leading the way, but it's important that we tell people and show people how we're leading. So we need the examples so that we can share them across government and industry.
At this stage, the City of Vincent in Western Australia uses Rapid LCA as part of the DA process, and it would be good to see that move to other states as well and councils.
Yeah, that sort of feeds into Candace's question about how could insights from the Rapid LCA app inform future benchmarks or regulatory pathways emerging from the low carbon challenge.
Yeah.
How did it come about as being part of the DA process in this state? Like, how can other states jump on board on advocating for this as part of those pathways?
I think in the City of Vincent, they had a good advocate there to push it into the council. I think we've just got to advocate in each state to get it on board locally as much as possible. And I think the low cost of the app probably helps to get it in. It's fairly simple to do.
Yeah, the cost of it and the time that it takes. I think a lot of these, you know, added things that architects have to do in various stages are very time consuming. This is actually pretty quick, you know, exercise to go through, and it is something that architects can do. I know, like, people probably from New South Wales will understand the basics reports. It's a, you know, a similar thing to that, but far easier.
Amazing. Well, I might just throw one last question out there, which is, what do you think is the biggest benefit in participating?
That's a quick. Okay.
I reckon the biggest benefit is this challenge is heading to the national conference in September I'm pretty sure it's September, in Brisbane as an exhibition. And so your projects will be up there shown and that's pretty cool. Oh, is it October? Sorry. And then there's going to be, hopefully a big discussion about that. So showing yourselves at the forefront of this movement, I think would be amazing.
Yeah, and I would add that it gives you an opportunity to go back to your clients and say, hey, this house is better than net zero, and get their reactions. It's always good to go back and sort of reconnect with past projects to see how they're going.
If any of you decide to watch the launch, which happened last October, I think, and is on our website, we had a few different architects speak, one from Breathe Architecture and also Sarah Lebner, who most of you probably know. She participated in the first challenge, and she's basically had a policy since then for all of her clients that they carbon model all of their projects. And so for me, really is exciting to see how someone's reshaped their practice and their value, the value that they offer to their clients, because she's making design decisions with her team now that include carbon reductions and how that informs the project.
Amazing. Well, that's probably all we have time for today. So thank you so much. Please, everybody, feel confident to go and get modelling. It sounds super easy. It's not something that I've done, but now I feel encouraged to do this. So I'll do it with you. Head to lowcarbonhousing.com.au for more information. And thank you so much again to Dr. Melinda Dodson, Dr. Kevin Miller, and Rob Henry. And thank you all for attending today.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.